Hello everyone, it's Lennon, and today I'm back at the PC, okay? Because I wanted to share some exciting news with you guys. I've got yet another book coming out, another poetry book, okay? This one has been taking my heart, you guys, okay? I'm very, very proud of all the other poetry books that I have out, but this one has really been fun, okay? So I wanted to take you through a little bit of the process like I did with Carpe Magica, and, you know, give it some love, shout it out a little bit. So this one is called Feral Witch. Prayers, Poems, and Incantations. Okay? Look at this cover, isn't it cute? It's going to be about 250 pages. And it's divided in like a cool way. I divided it in a cool way. Now, ferality means a lot, much more to me than just like, you know, being barefoot and, you know, dancing naked under the full moon, although that can be, you know, that can be something. But I found this really cool quote by Vali Mars, because I love her, to put in the dedication, and that just kind of drove the entire thing. Okay, so I want to say that first, then I'll go over the table of contents with you guys to kind of show you the structure. So, let it all be animal, my life and death, hard and clean like that, anything but human. A lot I care, me with my red heart in the dark earth and my tattooed feet following the animal ways. Dear Vali. So the sections, I have like sections in this. Mostly I like to have chapters in my poetry book just so that y'all, you know, the reader can have some semblance of this is what the poem's really going to be about, like an underlying foundation. And so I stick with that for most of my poetry books, and probably will in the future. But the sections that I did for this was so much more about seasons and stuff. And I had so many feral poems that were rooted in the seasons and like the wheel of the year type of a thing, you know? And so I thought, okay, but I need to add in a little bit more about feral, about witchcraft, da 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 da. So I had to put a whole bunch of like subsections in this. And so anyway, the first chapter is just witch. Okay? Just witch. Then you have witch verses, prayers for the witch, feral witch magic, and then of the wild places. And then you go into skin and bones, right? And then words of skins and bones, and then bestial prayers, right? Then you go into the seasons. So then that's spring, summer, autumn, and fall. Winter, sorry. Autumn and winter. And so with spring, I have ballads of spring, evocations of spring, and spring incantations. Then I have summer, chants of summer, sunny petitions, and summer charms. And for autumn, I have autumnal poems, prayers to fall into, and ripened words. And then in winter, I have words of winter, snow-capped prayers, and icy incantations. And I really like this setup. Now, I talk a little bit about this, about the structure in the introduction that I wrote for this. But like you start with witchcraft, right? Like the witch, the feral witch, the witchy witch, the pickety witch, right? You start there, right? Like I am a feral witch, right? Like you're like really affirming it, right? And then you get down, like, okay, you're a witch, now what? To get feral, you have to get to the skin and bones, right? You really have to go inward to find that ferality. And then once you do that, then you're connecting with the seasons and therefore nature in more profound ways. That was kind of the trajectory that I was looking for with this book, is that I wanted it to kind of feel like, okay, you can hang out with the seasons and revere them, worship them, you know, have a practice with them all you'd like, but to be a feral witch, you've got to really go deep first, and then, you know, find your ferality and find your wild self. And so now I'm not saying that if you haven't had your, if you don't know your wild self, like it's still out there running wild and you haven't lassoed that thing like Peter Pan's shadow, then it's still fine. Okay. Now I called this poems, prayers, and incantations because some of the poems in this are short. Kind of, I guess you could say, kind of like the incantations that I had in Immaculate Immortality to the Goddess, because some of those I would chant 3 times. So I wouldn't need to memorize like a whole 5 stanza poem to recite 3 times. I would just do like 1 stanza and then affirm that. Usually I do it 3. That's my number, 3. And you can do that with these, although I left out the, say this 3 times, I left that out because this is going to be a little bit more in line with a poetry book that you would buy off the shelf anyway. So there's that. Let's see. So starting in The Witch, the first poem right off the rip is Feral Witch. Undulate along the clever howls, born again in unkempt sorcery. Tempests roar their promises, and the stillness becomes depth. Wishful freedoms long live in wisdoms of solitude's confidence. Enchant the wild transients while nurturing caste creation. Yes. Then we're flying to the Sabbath, running in bare feet, mud pies. Mud pies sends me back to my childhood. A lot of these witch poems in this witch remind me so much of my childhood, right? Like I've got clouds scrying, mud pies, herbal potions, like you would just like rip up grass and like weeds and flowers your mom didn't like, and you would just like rip them up and put them in like mason jars, or I did. Okay. Bare feet, tangled hair, Mother Nature chant, stuff like that, right? Vessel of the moon, weaver of weird, incarnate. Incarnate is a really good short poem because it touches on the witch incarnate. Okay? Witch incarnate, fleshful, path laid bare like the heart. Invoke the witch mindset to recall jumps onto boundaries of magic, waiting on you, waiting on the swirling void. So like the witch incarnate is waiting on you, but you're the witch. So it's funny, I guess. Hopefully it's not just me. Cream of the Universes. This is a fairly long poem, actually. And then we have Prayers to the Witch. Most of these that I would say are prayers would on the surface look like poems, but in a lot of them I'm thinking something, I'm revering something, so they can actually be spoken out loud as if they are in your head, as if they were prayers. I'll give you an example. Prayer for, like, the subsection is called Prayers for the Witch, but one of the poems is called For a Feral World. And so you could, like, spout it in a way that would make you feel the ferality. So let me read this one. Sterility and method, hither the feral world. So dense is the rogue wishing to be lighter. Wild and primal, hither the feral world. So unkempt is the rogue wishing to be brighter. See, it's very, I could envision myself saying this out of reverence, wishing for that feral world, or wishing for it. It's a prayer. Prayer of shape-shifting, and a prayer for seasonal shifts, and blood vibrations, which rekindle witch blood vibrations is, there's a lot of talk right now about the witch blood and awakening it and rising it, okay, feeling it. And I agree with a lot of the words that I know exist about it. So this prayer is for witch blood vibration. Deep in the veins of the witch, the blood flows proud. Whispered magic vibrates. Electrical expression exists just under the surface. Call forth the redness of life, the ache of sorceries. Drip the ringing drops, resounding roaring flows, just under the surface. And see, this poem actually matches my ley line poem, which we'll probably get to. But because I believe the witch blood would run just like a ley line. The current, right? It's a current, it's a conduit. So I believe that they're the same thing. So I matched these two poems. Or in my own head. Then we have Feral Witch Magic. Fangs of the Feral Witch. To lift the mists. I've got my poem about Feral Church in here. And then we have of the wild places. Now let me read you the ley lines. Now, wild places, I mean like magical wild places, okay? So that's the stone circle, that's ley lines, mouth of the crystal cave, the old forest, holy hills, mountain stream, and the fairy ring. So those are the 7 poems that I've got for the of the wild places section. Well, I'm going to read you the ley line, and you can see how it's a conduit poem as well. It feels that way. Mysterious web of energies connected by forces unseen. Highways, sorry. Let me start over. Mysterious web of energies connected by forces unseen. Highways to divinity run the flowing trails between. Dragons and dreams float here, resounded only by felt senses. Ancient magic runs thorough down all alternate lenses. Conduits link places and times, channeled magnetism by electricity, uniting powers of earthen realms, ever contained spasticity. I like that one, because it's got a little dragon baby in it. I like that. Then we're into the skin. Now we've gone into the skins and bones, okay? Now the skins and bones is exactly what you'd think it would be, okay? I've got a rite of passage poem because I feel with ferality and shape-shifting, morphology in a total sense, I believe rite of passage is a given, okay? You need to go through a rite of passage. You can call this whatever you want, but most people, I think, would call it an initiation. But to find your ferality, a rite of passage is a must, okay? Because you're going to be going through a morphology to get there. You're going to become like a werewolf, okay? You've gotten bitten, okay? And that witch blood flowing through you now, kind of thing. So it's basically about a way to answer the call of the feral witch. So I can read it to you if you want me to. Sent to the forest fair, my feet were bloodied and my throat was bare. Cold and alone I walked, the path already chosen, quiet, not even a squawk. This rite will offer cure, healed from brokenness, continuing to be impure. Shaken to the core, heedy wandering child, whom the mother did bore. I feel this because the rite of passage, the last section, the last stanza is about, the mother did bore. It feels quite literally like I'm getting ripped from the mother, and that's what it's supposed to be. The rite of passage, the initiation in a lot of ways is about cutting the apron strings. It's about initiating yourself into that next phase of life, into that journey. So that's really what it is. And then we got blood, pimpled skins, so it's going to be like goose flesh, bone, shadows, teeth, nerve endings, feral breaths. Now, feral breaths is technically a poem, but I lay out like a breathing exercise. So you could make it a breathing exercise or just read it as a poem, I'll say it so you know. Alpha beats count the breaths, 18 in, 18 out, which is harder than you think. For me. Transfigured now in the breadth of breathing, 11 in, 11 out. Transcending now in the gaping gullet, 9 in, 9 out. Traversing now in the palatial portal, 3 in, 3 out. 9 in, 9 out. 11 in, 11 out. 18 in, 18 out. So it's laid out like a poem, but it's really can be a breathing treatment. Then we have bestial prayers. Now this is all about stuff, the animal kingdom stuff, right? The way we're connecting to the animal kingdom to connect with ourselves, which, as you all know, I'm an advocate for. So we have hides, like the, animal skin, shells. We have night vision, elongated claws, growing fur, gaining scales, fallen feathers, tails, wagging tails, and antennae, okay? Now, after we get in touch, we've gotten in touch with our witchcraft, we've awakened the witch blood, so to speak, and then we got in touch with the morphology, we've initiated, right? And we shape shift, if you will, in the skins and bones section, and then the bestial prayers is really about getting in touch. Now that we've shape shifted, we've shape shifted into something bestial and feral and primal, right? And now we can jump into the seasons, which the season, like a lot of these are very calm poems. They're very good, right? You're really only getting the rough ones in the beginning chapters. The spring, summer, autumn, and winter poems are laid out very good. You're going to feel like this kind of magic, calm, trickling rains in the spring, and then you're going to feel very full and vibrant and passionate in the summer chapter. It's really laid out like that, and I want it to kind of feel like that. And I do actually want this to feel like a book that you could take with you throughout a year, you know, like given that we're coming into spring, right, technically, then when this comes out at Beltane, you could use that time to really get in touch with yourself, and then start the spring chapter, like, you know, morph, rite of passage, initiate yourself, and then begin the spring chapter, because technically Beltane, we're still in the spring, and then start like, and then like focus on those couple of chapters after Beltane, and then by the summer solstice you can firmly plant yourself in the summer chapter and then move on the rest of the year. So you could potentially take this book through the rest of the year if you wanted to. So now we're in spring, okay? One other thing about the structure of this is that each season has a magical musical instrument. So I've designated each season with its own instrument. And I've also designated each season with a moon phase. So you'll see a lot of that too. I left out deities because I want this to be a little bit more well-rounded. Like I want any witch that wants to be a feral witch to pick it up, okay? And it not be so geared in my practice. These are just like seasonal invocations, seasonal prayers and poems and stuff like that. So for instance, the spring is the waxing nest moon. Sometimes I've even like change the name of the moon to coincide with, okay, this is a springtime moon, right? This would be waxing. So, and I added nest because I like that word for spring. That's it. Let me read you the waxing nest moon. Let's do that one. Under the waxing moon, the animals make their nests, forage through the hedges, sift the barrel through rest. Straw and tiny limbs make useful form breaks. Quick the birthing nears, knowing what is at stake. Gather and organize the organic, take the flotsam in your beak. Work hard with this wreath, the nest be solely unique. We're making a nest in the waxing, under the waxing moon, yes. Maiden of the butterflies, priestess of burnt milk. I had a lot of fun writing that one. Breastfeed the lamb. Spring's string symphony. Hatching initiation. Blackberry winter. That was something that my grandmother figure always used to talk about, was blackberry winter and dog days of summer. And because I was always barefoot, she would always warn me if I was barefoot in the dog days of summer, she would holler at me from next door, "You need to put some sandals on them feet." I'm like, God, okay. And it was a really big deal, like where I lived, to not be barefoot in the dog days of summer. So I wrote a poem to that. I actually wrote that in the summer because that's the summer thing, but the spring is blackberry winter. Where you get knocked, like it's already spring and you get knocked with a frost, you know, which rarely happens where I live, but sometimes it does. All right, then we have invocations of spring, fecundity, we have new beginnings, creative awakenings, the humanity's greening, right? Like the humanity is coming into the green. Then we have pollination, gestation, the spring's rain, bees dance, the sure-footed grounding, awaken the yawning light. Okay, now let's jump into summer because we're already talking a lot here. I am. Sun-baked, brewing storms in a coffee mug, the muse in the lighthouse, the full moon of strawberries. So that's what I called this one, the moon for summer. Creatrix of the waterfall. Oh, summers. Okay, so The string instrument is spring, and then the honey-drenched flute is summer, okay? Because Pan and Midsummer's Dream, okay, had to use a flute for summer. Honey-drenched and raw and pouring forth the music of summer's fire. I swept along with pan and ear and conjured fairies from selfish desire. The seas leapt away from the notes, playing passionately on their tides. Unconscious of any baser urges, I willingly became their guide. The flute I played fervently, kissed many a cheek ago. I now ask for many forest secrets, sing me what I wish to know. Doesn't that feel so Pan? It just feels so Pan. Like, I want a honey-drenched flute, okay? Oh, that was so good. Catch lightning in a jar. Mother's Midsummer's Dream. Sunlight in bones. Then we have some science, too, for energy, photosynthesis, for the burning passion, for adventure, ecstatic dancing, for glamour, all things to do with summer, right? We're feeling full, we're feeling it, we're feeling the magic of summer. Then we're getting into late summer, technically. Y'all wouldn't know this, but I do. Then we're doing sunrises, honoring the sun's power. For leavening, that means like, to go forth, right? Alert all dormancies. This is like we're in the height of summer now. We're alerting all the dormancies. Okay, look, shake it up. We're rattling stuff at this point. We're like we're singing our flute. We're awakening all the skeletons. All right, now we're getting into autumn. Now autumn is all about the harvest. Okay, well, getting ready for the harvest and then the harvest. So. But we're losing light too. We're the waning harvest moon. I really wanted to read y'all this one, okay? Not the waning harvest moon. The one next to it is called the Enchantress of Baked Bread, okay? The bread knows its mother, a mixer of ingredients shifting bare feet in the kitchen. Yeast and flour glisten on rosy cheeks, loving embrace, needing love in folds. Eyes open but unfocused at the task comes from the body, an elbow twisting, and a warped creation story. Become enchantress of the baked bread, tired but ever wanting the bite of legacy and fruition. Sprinkle hugs on hard crusts with butter kisses and a wink from this mother enchantress. It just feels like such a story to me. I can just imagine this kind of enchantress in the kitchen, like this kitchen witch, right? I can definitely feel that in this. And then we have a huntress of boons, because we're hunting for boons in autumn. The gourd vines. I don't know if I like this one. Now, a couple in autumn are about Samhain. Not specifically, but you'll know what I'm talking about. And then this one, gourd vines. Thrown seeds have sprouted this fall, aching vines kiss the dormant grounds. When ripe and plump, pick the gourds from under thick leaves and heave the girthed vegetables from their bowers. Sustenance for tables engorged with thrown seeds sprouted display. Tangled hands stuck in tendrils and dirt to be part of the ever-growing feast. Wary of winter, salvage only the best from the aching vines kissing dormant grounds. Yeah, I like that one. Then I've got Bat in the Belfry, which is a nod to like Halloween. Then I got the Haunted Riverbed. So some of them will feel kind of Samhain Halloween-esque, which is always nice. The autumn instrument, if you will, is the drum. And I called it the warm-hued drum. And it's about, like making the drum beat. This one's very drum beat. It's got a heartbeat rhythm to it, which is always nice when you're talking about drums. Then we have Earth and Alchemy, to thank the earth, to the shivering branches, because, it's going to get colder at the end of autumn, you know what I'm saying? To the old oaks, the earth ripening, the cornucopia. Let me see, Fortuna, guide your hand upon my horn and ensure its bounty. Worm the apples, split the pomegranates, juice the pears, and de-seed the gourds. For with the autumn we shall eat of the plenty that the harvest has brought. That's the cornucopia one. Then we're into winter, and we have a lot of stuff in the winter about like Cathonia, and certain things like we have the new cold moon, winter's nap, a lot about hibernation. I've got the hibernator of chilled mists. That one's good. Sorcerer of the cold fronts, dusk of the shedding antler. I like that because, deer shed their antlers this time. In the dying light, the buck sheds its antlers, waiting for bigger seasonal breaks, prowling the forest edge for new smells, aligning with new sensations. New skins arise in harsh conditions, making progress that only the forest knows. I like that one. Then we have Snow-Capped Prayers, which is about garnering uniqueness, letting it go with the snow, the returning light for continued hope and health. Winter is geared a lot to me in health. We do a lot of, I do a lot of like healing magic, tinctures and potions and stuff like that. There's a lot of echinacea in my house in the winter, and elderberry. So you know what I'm saying. That's a little a feral winter witchcraft there. And then we have the Black Moon at the very end of the winter chapter because I wanted to add that in there. The Pitch of Madness, the Inferno Summoner, the Winter's Dark Womb. The instrument for winter is the rattle, like the Let me read that one to you. Winter's rattles, tattles, and shakes the ground with deep fissures. Swish, 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 husk filled with rice make music to the dying light. And see how I could chant that to the, with a rattle. And that's the purpose of a lot of these, is that, if you're doing this in like around a bonfire or saying it at your altar or writing it, using it in conjunction with like a health potion that you're making, stuff like that. I like want them to feel very repetitive and chant-like, which is mostly why I call them incantations, because a lot of them can be spell, and they can be changed to fit a spellcraft working. But yeah, some of these are really close to my heart. But I like this one. Snow pyre for your old self. Cover with snow that which I am letting go. Onward I go to the place of the unknown. Fear is not an option here. Snow angels sing and cheer as I glide along quite merrily. Great fates teach me with clarity. I like that. It's like a snow angel, but I've made a pyre. Not a fire pyre, but a pyre of snow. Some of these cool word plays are just fun to do. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff here. I really hope that this can be adapted into a feral witchcraft practice, and it really feels seasonal and of the earth, and of wild, unkempt places, and shape-shifting to be a little bit more one with nature. So anyway, so yeah, this comes out on I don't know if it'll come out on the 30th of April or May the 1st. I want it to come out on Beltane, so I might do it on the 30th of April, just so it's a real kickoff for Beltane, for the feral witch, okay? So yeah, so I'll put it in my community tab when it goes live, and I'll probably do some community posts about it, when it comes up, and keep y'all apprised, okay? Super, super excited. Okay. Hope everyone's having a magical day. Much love.